Hey, welcome everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. I'm Natalie Solden with the Communications Office for the Office of Science. We welcome to the Office of Science's informational webinar on the Advanced Scientific Computing Research, Reaching a New Energy Sciences Workforce, RENEW, FOA. Before we begin, I have a few logistics to go over. This meeting is being recorded. You may have seen a pop-up that says you're being recorded. The recording of this meeting will be posted next week to the Department of Energy website. I'll drop that link into the chat once we start going. There are closed captions available. Please click on the closed captions button in Zoom to enable them. After the presentation, there will be a Q&A portion. Please use the Q&A box in Zoom to ask your question. With that, I'd like to introduce Dr. Jaren Susset, Acting Associate Director of the Office of Advanced Scientific Computing Research. Jaren.
Thank you, Natalie. Welcome, everyone. It is my pleasure to join this webinar today and talk about the RENEW program that we're very excited about. But first, maybe a few words about the Office of Science. Next slide, please. So Office of Science is part of the Department of Energy. We have a wide scope of portfolio within the physical sciences. In fact, maybe a little known fact is that we are the largest supporter of physical sciences in the United States. Part of our budget goes to supporting research, and part of it goes to supporting the facility operations. Of course, we do have funding at various institutions, including academia and the DOE national labs. About 35% of our budget supports thousands of researchers in the universities, and the rest in other institutions, including labs and industry. Next slide, please. Today, we're going to talk about the Reaching New Energy Sciences Workforce Initiative and the program that we started last year, in fact. The overall goal of the program is to build foundations through undergraduate and graduate training opportunities for students and institutions that were historically underrepresented in the Office of Science research portfolio. We've done some prep work before we initiated the program. Within the Office of Science, we conducted outreach and listening sessions in fiscal year 21 and 22. And we launched the program in FY22. The solicitations that we issued, they were piloting models of support that directly address barriers to participation in Office of Science supported fields of research. Of course, this was just last year, so the models will be evaluated as we move forward. In FY23, in fiscal year 23, we're doubling our investment and commitment to advanced discovery and innovation by increasing the diversity of individuals and institutions supported. And this is why we're gathered today to talk about the fiscal year 23 activities. Next slide, please. So within the Office of Science, there are many different programs. There are actually, you see a list of 7 different programs here. We are from the Advanced Scientific Computing Research. Solely, this webinar is focused on the RENEW solicitation that's coming out of the Advanced Scientific Computing Research. Other programs that you see in this list here, they have issued or about to issue their own solicitations. Within the ASCR, we have issued the solicitation, and the eligible applicants are actually everyone, all institutions, including the DOE national labs, are eligible to apply to our RENEW solicitation. We have about, in total, 10 million dedicated to this. We will look at the applications that are asking between 50K to 1 million per institution per year. The ceiling for the multi-institutional teams is 2 million total per year. And we would like to make awards for 3 years. The solicitation has already been issued. The pre-application deadline is February 21st. And we will provide a response to pre-applications by March 14th. And the application deadline for proposals is April 18th. Next slide, please. A couple of words about the advanced scientific computing research. In ASCR, we really focus on the high-end computing. Our research lays the groundwork for scientific discoveries. We have programs in applied mathematics and computer science that advance the foundations to understand the natural and engineered systems and to reveal scientific insight from high-end simulations, models, and data. At the same time, we do have programs in advanced computing to prepare for the future of science based on advanced emerging computing technologies, as well as microelectronics. At the same time, within advanced scientific computing research, we steward the ASCR user facilities. These are really the world's fastest and biggest supercomputers and networking capabilities. In fact, we are now deploying the world's first exascale supercomputers. At the same time, we are deploying the nation's most advanced scientific network. We do have strategic partnerships within ASCR and within the Office of Science. With other programs within the Office of Science, we partner to advance interdisciplinary research, as well as we engage in interdisciplinary research with other agencies and industry members. But maybe most importantly here, we invest in people. We cannot get anything done. Certainly, things like in a supercomputing field, advanced breakthroughs without investing in people. So RENEW is part of that goal, but we do have a history in investing people as well. We actually have a computational science graduate fellowship that's been going on since 1991 and other activities. With that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Dr. Claire Kramer, who has been leading this effort as the ASCR program manager. Thank you.
Thanks, Jaren. And thanks to all of you for attending and for your interest in RENEW. Can we move to the next slide? So the goal of ASCR's RENEW program is to increase participation of underrepresented groups in the advanced scientific computing workforce, and to increase participation of underrepresented institutions in advanced scientific computing workforce training. So our focus on the one hand is on the people, and it's also on the capacity of institutions to train those people. So keep in mind those goals as we discuss the details of the FOA and the technical areas in which we're seeking applications. So this year, ASCR's RENEW solicitation has 3 topical areas that span the breadth of ASCR's programs. So in applied mathematics, we're looking at hands-on programming opportunities, data organization and cleaning, data visualization, data science. In computer science, we're looking at artificial intelligence, high-performance computing, and scientific computing. And in the area of advanced computing technologies, we're looking at quantum computing and networking. Note that in all 3 categories, we're seeking applications to leverage existing expertise at DOE laboratories and or other partner institutions to meet ASCR's program goals of increasing participation on the one hand of underrepresented groups, and on the other hand, increasing participation of underrepresented institutions. So can you move to the next slide, please? As Jaren noted, eligibility is wide open. Programmatically, remember the focus is on members of underrepresented groups, both PIs and students, and institutions underrepresented in ASCR's research portfolio. That includes, but is not limited to, minority serving institutions and non-R1 institutions. And the role of other types of institutions is to partner to share expertise and infrastructure. So it's expected that applications will be submitted by multi-institutional teams. Multi-institutional teams for ASCR's RENEW solicitation must submit a collaborative application. The lead institution in that collaborative application may have one of 2 roles. So the first role is to perform a greater portion of the scientific and technical work than any other team member, right? So this is sort of a very traditional sort of lead and partner structure. The other possibility is for the lead institution to have a coordinating role in a multi-institution collaboration in which the majority of funding goes to partner institutions. So for example, a hub and spoke model. And in that case, it could be very appropriate for different types of institutions, such as small businesses, nonprofits, R1s that have extensive experience in coordinating this type of activity, working with partner institutions that would receive a majority of the total award funding to have a very high impact, high quality project. So can we go on to the next slide? As you're thinking about your projects and thinking about putting your project budgets together, we want to draw your attention to this incomplete list of allowable costs. So recognizing that we're really seeking out applications from people who may not be familiar with the Department of Energy's process, we have found that sometimes people aren't aware that we allow you to request these things in your budgets. So this list is incomplete, but let me hit a few highlights. You're allowed to ask for whatever faculty salary time you need in order to complete the project effectively. So we often refer to this as buying out faculty time dedicated to teaching or administrative responsibilities. So you're not restricted to just summer salary. You can request support for administrators to support your project activity. You can request support for professional development activities, really for anybody participating in the project in a way that supports the project's objectives. You can request support for travel, not just to present the results of any work that you do, but to meet with your collaborators, to attend team meetings, to attend workshops, or to conduct offsite projects. You can request funding for fringe benefits, for temporary dependent care costs incurred during travel, for stipends for people participating in the project at all levels, salary support to cover time for outreach and recruitment, training, team meetings, partnership, development, really anything that supports the project and allows you to achieve its objectives effectively. And then any other direct costs. You know, if you need a computer to do this project, buy a computer. We want you to succeed. So with 2 caveats, so this is an incomplete list, 3 caveats. All requested costs must also be allowable by your institution. So we allow these things, your institution must also allow whatever you ask for. And all the requested costs must be directly related to the proposed work. Next slide. Just to review the award information. So as you're putting together your budgets, you of course want to meet these parameters. So as Jaren said, we expect to have $10 million total available for this opportunity. We're looking at a period of performance for each award of 3 years. The maximum you can ask for your multi-institutional team is $2 million per year, with a ceiling of $1 million per institution per year for one team member, and a floor of $50,000 per institution per year. So what we wanted to do was give you a lot of flexibility in finding the best solutions for achieving ASCR's program goals. You know, and then the expected number depend on the number of meritorious applications and the availability of funds. Next slide, please. Pre-applications are required for this funding opportunity. Applicant institutions are limited to no more than 3 pre-applications. When we receive the pre-applications, we will review them for responsiveness. So we will check and see if they're compliant and that they actually address the program objectives as described in the funding opportunity announcement. We may also review the pre-applications for competitiveness. And the details of how we would do that and what the motivation for doing so are detailed in the FOA. Only the lead institution in your multi-institutional team needs to submit a pre-application. We don't need those from every participating institution. We will need proposals from every participating institution if we encourage your pre-application, but only 1 pre-application per team is required. The pre-application has 4 components. These are all required components. You need a cover page that has basic information explained in the FOA. We want a rough budget breakdown of how you anticipate how much overall you'll be asking for and how that breaks down between the different participating institutions, as to give us a sense of what we're looking at. And so we can do some planning ahead of time. You need to give us a 2-page project description that includes any figures and references. And then you need a machine-readable PDF listing individuals who should not be merit reviewers. So there are instructions for this in Section 8 of the FOA. Sometimes people who are new to DOE misunderstand what we're asking for here. This is colloquially referred to as the conflict of interest list. So this is a giant list of people that you have certain relationships with who may not serve as merit reviewers. This is not a list of people who you would prefer not serve as merit reviewers for your own reasons. Sometimes we allow people to informally submit such a thing. That is not what we're asking for here. Please look at the instructions for how to submit this. It's very, very important to do it correctly and ask questions ahead of time if you're unsure. Next slide. Right. And so once we get to the stage at which we've encouraged applications and you've submitted them, we get them merit reviewed. So our selection process has 2 stages. The first is a merit review. So we will assemble a team of reviewers with the appropriate subject matter expertise to review the proposals. They will review them with respect to these 5 criteria that are detailed in the FOA. And they're given some food for thought questions that are also written in the FOA. Note that there was a snafu in getting our FOA on the website, and somehow these renew specific criteria and weighting factors were accidentally replaced by the standard ones. We are working to get that fixed, and we expect that the revised FOA will be on the web by tomorrow. So please check for that update so you have the best and most current information when you're thinking about how to present your project to the reviewers. Next slide. After we've completed the merit review process with our external peer reviewers, they provide us with written summaries based on their subject matter expertise of how they view your proposal with respect to those 5 criteria. We then take that as input and weigh it against what is a fairly lengthy list of program policy factors. So we're not asking the reviewers to make recommendations about funding. We're not asking them to reach a consensus and tell us what we should do. What we do is take their subject matter informed opinions of the proposal and weigh that against a list of criteria. So always the availability of funds, the relevance to Office of Science and ASCR priorities, ensuring an appropriate balance of activities across the Office of Science programs. If applicable, performance under current awards. We do understand that many of you may not have current awards with us. That's totally fine and expected. And then we have a number of things we want to consider that are specifically relevant to the RENEW program objectives. So these are listed in no particular order, but we want to be very upfront about the types of things we're considering when we're evaluating the puts and takes of all the different really good applications we anticipate receiving. Next slide, please. So just to finish off, just a reminder of the key dates, because of course, these are really important. We issued the FOA a couple of weeks ago. The submission deadline for pre-applications is February 21st. So you still have several weeks to prepare something and submit it. The response date, which somehow it should say pre-application response date, is March 14th. And the submission deadline for applications is April 18th. So if you go to the next slide, if you'd like to find more information about our funding opportunities, then you can find that at that particular web address on ASCR's website. If you have technical questions about the FOA, like about the scope, about what's expected to be in your letter of intent, things like that, email me. That's my email address right there on the screen. We have compiled across the Office of Science fairly extensive resources with frequently asked questions about proposal submission processes, about the new peer plans, and all kinds of different things that we've found people need support with. You can find those on the applicant and awardee resources page under the grants webpage on the OSTI website. And then it's often helpful to look at ASCR's community workshop reports when you're thinking about proposing a project in a topic that's of relevance to us. So I think I'll stop there, and we should have plenty of time for questions.
Yes, thank you. And they are popping in, and I think Mike Zarkin has taken care of a couple of them, and I believe that most people can see the answered questions. So I will ask some questions out loud. I have a question about the partnership. Are we allowed to have partners from both DOE labs as well as R1 institutions simultaneously?
So the answer to that is yes. You can have as many partners as you want. I would strongly encourage you to provide a good explanation in your pre-application of why your team structure is going to be very effective in meeting ASCR's goals. But I think they're technically, you can't have more than $2 million per year, and the floor is $50,000. So you could, in principle, have a team of up to 40 partners.
Yeah, and can we have more than one partner? So, and what would be the limit on budget allocation? Is that?
So go back to the information in the FOA about the floor and the ceiling on individual institutions and on the ceiling for multi-institutional teams. So you can't, each institution in the team cannot ask for more than $1 million. They cannot ask for less than $50,000, and your overall team can't ask for more than $2 million a year. That's it. No other restrictions.
I think you answered all that. Does the PI have to be a citizen?
Not at all.
Okay.
The PI needs to have the legal right to work in the United States, assuming that you're applying through a domestic organization, which is, though, required under this FOA. Assuming you have the legal right to work in the United States, there are no other restrictions. The one thing to note is if you are not a US citizen and the work you are proposing requires that you actually, let's say, go on site to access one of DOE's supercomputers at either Argonne or Oak Ridge National Lab. If you are not a US citizen, you will need to request permission in advance to visit any DOE site. And that has nothing to do with permanent residency, your visa status, whether you're the PI, a postdoc, a student. That's any non-US citizen needs to be approved in advance for any access to any DOE site. But otherwise, sky's open.
Thanks, Mike. Is overlap between proposal and peer plans in submissions okay, since there is a lot of overlap in goals of this FOA and peer plans?
Yes, that's something we anticipate for this FOA. That's totally fine.
Okay. With a DOE lab as a partner, what is the ceiling of their budget?
$1 million per year.
Thank you. For the pre-application, where does the estimated budget table go? Is it within the 2-page?
You can stick it on your cover page.
Okay. Are DACA students allowed to be supported under this FOA? DACA.
Deferred action for childhood admission. As long as you are paying people who may legally be paid, we have absolutely no other problems with it. If you're concerned about other forms of immigration enforcement, we strongly suggest referring those to the appropriate authorities. We're not them.
About the pre-application, should we include the co-PI names on the pre-application?
Yes, you should. In fact, those names should appear in the estimated budget table, and you can put that on your cover page so it doesn't eat into your 2 pages if you like.
Wonderful. Does the FOA have preference among one non? Okay. Does the FOA?
So I can read the question. I'm going to say no.
Okay.
What we're really interested in is your best ideas for how to meet ASCR's program goals.
Are there examples of projects funded under this program last year?
We are working to get abstracts of those available on a website that you can all access. So hopefully we'll find a way, maybe Natalie can email the list, or we'll update the FOA website with that once it's there.
Great.
I know this because I had to submit the documents to the person compiling them yesterday, and I did, so.
Does the budget allocation for operating staff are allowable?
I'm not 100% sure what you mean by operating staff, but in any reasonable interpretation I can come up with off the top of my head, that sounds like an allowable response, cost.
Usually, the key answer there is it depends. Make sure you follow your university's policies and procedures for that. Administrative staff are typically paid out of your institution's overhead costs, unless, however, they are committing so much time and effort to this particular effort that we can easily say that 1/3 of that administrator's time should be charged directly to this award, in which case you would need to justify that. But the experts on that are going to be in your Office of Sponsored Research, possibly even in your university's budget office.
Thanks. Can a DOE lab participate as an unfunded partner?
So in principle, that is allowed. In practice, we do expect, and the FOA has, please refer to the FOA for language about this, an expectation that each participating institution will be making a substantive contribution to the project. And so you'll have to think about how that's going to work if the DOE lab isn't being paid as a part of the project.
For the budget evaluation, will the reviewers be aware of the difference in faculty staff labor costs between DOE labs and universities, since DOE labs labor costs are typically higher than those at universities?
So the answer to that is yes, the reviewers will be aware of that, and typically the budget justification documents provided with the proposal will explain the rates. So that's something that merit reviewers are free to have their own opinion on. And that's something that we frequently look at when we consider the program policy factors. So we understand that there are differences in salaries, and that means a different cost for the same level of effort, depending on the type of institutions. And so, yes, people know this.
Is it possible that a non-lead DOE labs labor budget could exceed a lead university's budget, including proper staff allocations is important for good mentorship? I think
so that's where you need to go back to the definition or I think it's not a definition, but the description of appropriate roles for the lead institution in the FOA, right? So the lead institution may have a coordinating role and receive less money or a minority of funds, or the lead institution can have, a majority role and receive more funds than the other participating institutions.
Are consultants not from academic institutions or DOE allowable? And do they have the same requirements for institutional floors and ceilings?
So they are allowable. And the answer to that depends on the role they're playing in the project. So if they have a comparable role to other partners, then they are subject to the same floor and ceiling, right? Any institution is subject to that floor and ceiling. Mike, do you remember off the top of your head the language about things that must be funded through subcontracts, technical support services and things like that?
Yeah, it's typically anything that is going to be its own substantive scientific contribution. Consultants, though, are typically hired as individuals, and therefore they become part of that institution's overall costs. So typically a consultant would not then be subject to his or her own institutional floor and ceiling.
Thanks. For the writing of the proposal, should we focus more on how to train the workforce, or focus more on technical innovation, contribution, and impacts, or half and half?
All of the above. I think we need to understand what you're trying to do, why it's a good idea, and what impact it will have. I mean, I guess if you're asking, you're not really going to be evaluated in the same way on whether this is a super innovative thing. You're going to be evaluated on whether it's a high impact thing using appropriate methods that you can execute.
This program seems to encourage participation of members from underrepresented groups. Besides the institution having or not MSI classification, how do you identify if the participants are from an underrepresented group? I do not recall the submission system PAMS requiring this information.
No, it is optional to provide that information
Correct.
in PAMS.
Correct.
So there is actually an FAQ that was recently posted that answers the question, what does the Office of Science define as groups historically underrepresented in STEM? So it does not have a one-size-fits-all answer. It's a relative term and has meaning only when compared to a relevant baseline. That baseline depends on, for example, the scientific field and the education level, post-secondary, undergrad, grad, early career, et cetera. The Office of Science encourages diverse participation in their sponsored research and promotes equity, inclusion, and accessibility broadly through peer plans. Applicants should look at publicly available statistically information, for example, that's supplied by NSF's National Center for Science and Engineering Statistics for benchmark data in specific scientific fields. So I would encourage you to look at that. If you have questions that you're not sure how to navigate, send those to us and we can help you navigate them.
Right. But in addition, I'll just note that the PAMS system does ask for information about individuals, and for institutions, we have the minority serving classifications, we have the Carnegie classifications, we have the Emerging Research Institution classification from the CHIPS and Science Act, and we can also look internally in our records to see if this is an institution that we have historically supported or not supported. And part of our initiative under Renew is both to increase the diversity of the institutions we're supporting and of the personnel working at those institutions. And keep in mind that both of those goals are part of what we're trying to do here.
Thank you. Does this program support institutional capacity building that focuses on governance, process standards, and infrastructure commitments at the institutional level?
So that is something that you may, if you wish, include in your proposal. Just bear in mind that the goals are really sort of focused on training people and institutional capacity to train people. So if those things that you listed are important components of your developing a capacity to do those things and actually execute, then it's appropriate to include them. But bear in mind that we will be looking at things like how many students will be participating and what is the anticipated impact and things like that.
That's all the questions I have. There was a question about providing a transcript of the live answers to chat questions that we're providing the webinar currently and the slides. But thank you for that note. We will think about it. Should applications list specific topic areas, applied math, comp sci, advanced computing tech preferred, or are cross-cutting applications welcome as well?
You should pick one specific topic, and it's, I believe, required to be listed on the cover page of your pre-application.
Can a proposal target two programs, such as computational project on theoretical nuclear physics, have a shared budget with Renew, advanced scientific computing, and nuclear physics programs?
No, you would need to submit separate proposals to each independent FOA.
Other thing I would note in that case is you would want to be very careful as you are writing those proposals to make sure that the scopes of work could somehow be separated if both were to be recommended for funding. The government has an absolute prohibition against paying for the same piece of work twice. So if both of those proposals were to be well reviewed and selected for funding, we would need to then work with you to make sure that, let's say, the piece going to nuclear physics supported the theoretical physics piece of it, and the piece going to ASCR supported the computational side of it.
That's my last question that I have in the Q&A box. I'm going to give it another 30 seconds to a minute to see if anything else pops up. Can an institution submit more than one proposal?
So yes, an institution may submit up to 3.
Thank you. In a previous answer, it was mentioned that ASCR is interested in receiving applications for collaborative projects to enhance training opportunities for students and postdoctoral researchers from underrepresented groups and at institutions that are currently underrepresented in the ASCR portfolio. To identify the portfolio, is there a complete list link that you can provide?
So unfortunately, no, we do not have a complete list. So to assess this for yourself, I would encourage you to use the PAMS awards search feature. You can search by institution and see what awards your institution currently has. And I believe that search goes back into the past. You can also just ask, and I'm happy to look it up.
In addition, you can use the public-facing award search on the Office of Science's homepage. If you were to navigate to science.osd.gov, underneath the funding tab, you will see a link for award search / public abstracts. If you click on that link, you can then search for all current and historical awards from the Office of Science and filter that down by program office and see what ASCR has funded in the last 5 years. Would give you a very detailed view of the information you're looking for.
Yes, I think Mike explained the PAMS thing far better than I did.
Complimented. Are the figures and references included in the 2-page description page limit?
Yes, they are.
Can a DOE proposal, to some extent, say 20 or 40% or so, have overlap with an NSF proposal?
Yes, proposals can overlap. Awards cannot. And if both
are
proposals,
selected, yeah.
right, if both are selected, number one, congratulations. Number two, then we're going to work with you to narrow down the scope to make sure that we're not paying for the same work twice. If we don't do that, you are going to then have some very unpleasant conversations with people from our Office of the Inspector General. We really don't recommend that. It tends to be awkward and unpleasant and not do your research prospects any favors. So if you should be in that happy situation, congratulations, but then work with us so that we can make sure to keep you away from the IG.
Thanks. Could you please repeat your answer in the question whether ASCR gives priority to R1 MSI universities or non-R1 universities?
So all different of these different types of universities are eligible to participate either as partners or as leads. And what we will prioritize are proposals that effectively meet ASCR's program goals according to the merit review criteria in the FOA.
Are there any requirements for the collaborations at DOE labs?
So if you're asking, do you have to have a DOE lab collaborator? The answer is no. You should have one if that makes sense for your project. If other collaborators make sense, use them instead. And if you have DOE lab collaborators, they are subject to all of the other provisions in the FOA, for example, the floor and the ceiling on funding.
And then somebody wants the link for the FAQs regarding underrepresented groups.
Okay, I can tell you guys where that is, but it's up on the wrong computer, so I can't drop it in. So okay. It is on the grants and contract support, applicant and awardee resources, peer plans FAQ.
I can probably. Can you say that one more time? Sorry.
I think Mike has it.
Oh, he has it. Great. Thanks, Mike. Wonderful. Okay. Again, we reached the end. I will give it another 30 seconds to a minute. We have a list of the participants of this webinar. I don't believe so. But I don't know.
I'm pretty sure we would have some Privacy Act problems on that. So I'd rather not.
Yeah, I don't think so. If an individual has a joint appointment with,
If the question is if it's us, I think you can look us up. So you can, I think you can see our names, but not the other participants.
correct. So Claire dropped her email earlier, and we can drop everybody else's email, but yeah. If an individual has a joint appointment with a lab and a university, can they apply from both?
The answer to that one is going to be, it depends. There are joint appointments, and then there are joint appointments. If in fact you have two employers, each of whom is paying a part of your salary, a part of your benefits, then you could legitimately apply through either institution. If, however, your joint appointment is really a fig leaf, so that the lab could treat you as a university person, even though the lab is really then going to cover the costs for the university of whatever you do, you're really a lab employee, and we'd rather not go through the smoke screens involved. Similarly, if you're really a university person with an honorary visiting appointment at a national lab, your university faculty, apply through the university. But if you really have two employers, then you really have two employers.
There, it looks like we have a repeat. They wanted to hear your answer again. Do you mind repeating the answer for this question? Should applications list specific topic areas preferred, or are cross-cutting applications welcome as well?
So you need to pick one of the three topic areas, and you need to list it on the cover page of your pre-application according to the instructions in the FOA.
Thank you. What is the budget limit for one lead institution and one lab partner, DOE lab partner?
Yes, the total budget limit is $2 million and no more than $1 million per institution. Per year.
Again, we reached the bottom. So I will give it another 30 seconds to a minute. Is there anything that people, our panelists, would like to say in closing?
No, I just want to thank everyone for their participation in this webinar and their interest in this program that we're certainly very excited about. If you have any further questions, you can always ping us, and you know our name, so it's okay to contact us. Thank you.
Do you anticipate to fund 5 projects, or would you be interested to fund more, given that there's an estimated 10 million per year for ASCR with a max of 2 million per proposal?
So the estimated number of awards really depends on the number of meritorious applications and the availability of funds. We don't have a number to give you.
Also going to depend on the size of the proposals that come in, because presumably not everyone is in a position to request $1 million a year.
Same question for the specific topic areas.
You have to pick one and you have to list it on your pre-application. I actually don't understand the question.
I think the question is, are we planning to allocate at
Oh,
least one award in each topic area? And my assumption is We have multiple topic areas. We like them all, and we're going to make decisions based on the quality of the proposals that come in. And if we had better crystal balls, I can't speak for my colleagues, but I'd be making my money on Wall Street.
Can the same institution get 2 grants?
Hypothetically, yes, your eligible institutions may submit up to 3 pre-applications that could all be encouraged. We won't encourage pre-applications unless there's at least a hypothetical possibility that you could be funded.
I think this is a similar question. Can a proposal span multiple technical areas that are listed in the FOA?
You have to pick one technical area and you need to tell us what it is.
Great. I think with that, we've reached the end of this webinar. Thank you so much for joining. Once again, the recording of the webinar and the recording and the slides will be available on the website that I listed earlier in the chat. And if you have any further questions, again, you can contact anybody on this panel. Thank you so much.